Welcome to Political Science 101. Did you know that in 2019, only 40% of Americans could name the 3 branches of government? Shocking, right? Politics shapes our daily lives, yet many of us don't fully understand it. This video will change that. We're diving deep into the world of politics, but not in a boring way. We'll reveal the real power players behind the scenes, show you how local actions can create global ripples, and explain how ordinary people can change the world. Did you know lobbyists in the US spent over $3.5 billion in 2021 to influence politicians? Or that social media algorithms can shape your political views without you even knowing it? We'll uncover these hidden forces and more. You'll learn about the secret deals that make or break policies, the rise of citizen activism, and the future of democracy in the age of technology. So, get ready. By the end of this video, you'll see politics in a whole new light. Let's start this journey into the fascinating world of political science. Chapter 1: Unmasking Power, the real faces behind political institutions. Ever wondered who really pulls the strings in politics? It's not always who you think. Beyond the elected officials, there are hidden influences that shape our world. Lobbyists are one of these powerful groups. Did you know that in 2021, over $3.5 billion was spent on lobbying in the United States alone? That's a huge sum used to sway political decisions. Think tanks also play a significant role. These research institutions produce reports that can influence policy. For example, the Brookings Institution and the Heritage Foundation are often cited in political debates. Then there are shadow cabinets. These are groups of advisors and former politicians who guide current leaders. They work behind the scenes, making key decisions without public scrutiny. Political action committees, PACs, are another major player. They raise money to support candidates who favor their interests. In the 2020 election cycle, PACs spent nearly $4 billion. Did you know that some of the most influential lobbyists in the US are former members of Congress? They use their connections to open doors that would otherwise remain closed. Sometimes, big corporations wield political power. For instance, tech giants like Facebook and Google have spent millions on lobbying to protect their business interests. Non-governmental organizations, NGOs, also influence policy. Groups like Amnesty International advocate for human rights, often swaying public opinion and political actions. The influence of these groups is not always negative. They can push for important changes. For example, the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, has been pivotal in fighting for civil rights in the US. Understanding these power dynamics is key to grasping modern politics. It's not just about who's in office but who's in their ear. Chapter 2: Beyond Borders, the global impact of domestic politics. Domestic politics often have global consequences. Take Brexit, for example. The UK's decision to leave the EU sent shockwaves around the world. Trade deals are a big part of this. When countries change their trade policies, it can affect global markets. For instance, the US-China trade war had impacts on economies worldwide. Climate policies are another area where domestic decisions have global effects. When a major country like the US sets climate policy, it can influence global efforts to combat climate change. Immigration policies also have far-reaching impacts. The Syrian refugee crisis showed how one country's conflict could lead to policy changes in many other nations. Did you know that political stability in one country can affect the stock markets globally? Political unrest often leads to economic uncertainty, impacting international investors. Foreign aid decisions can change lives in other countries. When governments decide to increase or cut aid, it can mean the difference between survival and disaster for millions of people. The influence of cultural policies can also cross borders. Hollywood films, for instance, often carry American values and norms to audiences around the world. Election outcomes in major countries can affect global alliances and strategies. For example, the election of a new US president often leads to shifts in international relations. Even healthcare policies can have global implications. The handling of the COVID-19 pandemic by different countries showed how interconnected our world is. To understand global politics, one must look at the domestic decisions of key players. These decisions can ripple across continents, affecting millions. Domestic politics are not just about the people living in a country. They have the power to shape the world. And that's why it's crucial to pay attention to what happens inside each nation's borders. Chapter 3: Grassroots to Governance, the Rise of Citizen Activism. Grassroots movements have been shaking up politics in recent years. They show the power of ordinary people coming together for a cause. Take the 2011 Arab Spring, for example. This series of protests started small but led to major political changes in several countries. The Black Lives Matter movement is another powerful example. It began as a hashtag but grew into a global campaign against racial injustice. In 2020, it led to protests in over 60 countries, demanding justice and equality. One strategy these movements use is social media. Platforms like Twitter and Facebook help spread their message quickly. During the 2019 Hong Kong protests, activists used encrypted messaging apps to organize and stay safe. Crowdfunding is also a key tool. It allows movements to raise money without relying on big donors. For instance, the Dakota Access Pipeline protests were partly funded through online donations, showing the power of collective small contributions. Grassroots activism often starts locally. Community organizing can address specific local issues, like housing or education. But these local efforts can grow into national movements. The fight for marriage equality in the US began with local actions and ended with a Supreme Court decision. Training and education are crucial for these movements. Workshops and seminars help activists learn about organizing, public speaking, and legal rights. Groups like the Highlander Center have been training activists for decades, including civil rights leaders like Rosa Parks. Coalition building is another strategy. By partnering with other groups, activists can amplify their message. The Women's March in 2017 brought together a wide range of organizations, making it one of the largest protests in US history. Nonviolent protest is often the chosen method. Studies have shown that nonviolent movements are more likely to succeed than violent ones. Gene Sharp's book, From Dictatorship to Democracy, outlines 198 methods of nonviolent action. Sometimes, these movements lead to direct political participation. Activists may run for office or influence policy directly. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a former activist, became one of the youngest women ever elected to the US Congress in 2018. Grassroots movements show that ordinary people can make a big difference. By organizing, educating, and collaborating, they can challenge powerful institutions and drive change. Chapter 4: Political Propaganda, Decoding Media and Misinformation. Media plays a huge role in shaping political opinions. But not all media is created equal. Political propaganda can distort the truth and influence public perception. It's crucial to learn how to decode these messages. One common strategy is the use of loaded language. Words with strong emotional connotations can sway opinions without providing solid arguments. For example, calling a policy job killing can evoke fear, even if the evidence is unclear. Repetition is another tactic. By repeating a message, propagandists make it more likely to be accepted as truth. This is often seen in political ads and speeches. Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's propaganda minister, famously said, "Repeat a lie often enough and it becomes the truth." Selective truth-telling can also mislead. By highlighting some facts while ignoring others, media can create a biased narrative. During the Vietnam War, both pro-war and anti-war sides used selective footage to support their views. The bandwagon effect is a strategy where media suggests that everyone is doing it. This can pressure people to conform. Political campaigns often use this tactic by showing large, enthusiastic crowds. Another strategy is to appeal to authority. Using experts or celebrities to endorse a message can lend it credibility, even if the endorsement is not based on expertise. This is common in political ads where trusted figures endorse candidates or policies. Fear-mongering is a powerful tool. By creating a sense of threat, propagandists can push people to support certain policies or leaders. George Orwell's 1984 illustrates this with the constant state of war used to control the populace. Fake news is a growing problem. These are false stories spread to mislead. A study by MIT found that false news spreads faster and reaches more people than true news. Fact-checking sites like Snopes and factcheck.org are essential tools to combat this. Social media algorithms can amplify propaganda. They often show users content that reinforces their existing beliefs, creating echo chambers. This was seen in the 2016 US election, where misinformation spread widely on Facebook and Twitter. Visual propaganda is also effective. Images and videos can evoke strong emotions. During World War II, posters depicting enemies as monsters were used to justify military actions. Understanding these strategies can help you critically assess political messages. Look for reliable sources, check multiple perspectives, and be wary of emotional manipulation. This way, you can form well-informed opinions based on facts, not propaganda. Chapter 5: Behind Closed Doors, Political Negotiations and Backroom Deals. Political negotiations often happen behind closed doors. These secretive talks can shape policies and laws without public scrutiny. Understanding these strategies is key to grasping political processes. One common strategy is horse trading. This involves trading favors or votes to achieve desired outcomes. For instance, a politician might support a colleague's bill in exchange for future support on their own initiatives. It's a give and take that keeps the wheels of politics turning. Lobbyists often participate in these negotiations. They advocate for specific interests, aiming to influence lawmakers' decisions. According to the Center for Responsive Politics, lobbying expenditures in the U.S. reached over $3.5 billion in 2021. Coalition building is another essential tactic. Politicians form alliances with like-minded colleagues to strengthen their bargaining power. For example, the Congressional Black Caucus in the U.S. Congress unites African American lawmakers to advocate for common goals. Timing is crucial in negotiations. Politicians often wait for the right moment to push their agenda, such as during a national crisis or economic downturn. This can provide the leverage needed to sway undecided lawmakers. Secrecy can also be a strategy. By keeping negotiations private, politicians can avoid public pressure and media scrutiny. This allows them to explore options and make compromises without external interference. Using intermediaries is another tactic. Third parties can facilitate negotiations, helping to bridge gaps between opposing sides. This is common in international diplomacy, where neutral countries often mediate peace talks. Incrementalism is a subtle strategy where politicians achieve their goals step by step. Instead of pushing for sweeping changes, they implement small, gradual reforms that eventually lead to significant policy shifts. Sometimes, politicians employ brinkmanship, pushing negotiations to the edge of a crisis to force a decision. This high-stakes tactic can be risky but effective. The Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962 is a classic example where brinkmanship brought the world to the brink of nuclear war but ultimately led to a peaceful resolution. Political spin is used to manage public perception. After a deal is made, politicians and their teams often craft narratives to present the outcome favorably. This helps maintain public support and minimize backlash. These behind-the-scenes strategies highlight the complexity of political negotiations. While they may seem secretive, understanding them provides insight into how political decisions are made. Chapter 6: Future Politics: How Technology is Shaping Democracy. Technology is rapidly changing the face of politics. From social media to artificial intelligence, new tools are reshaping democratic processes. Let's explore these strategies and their impacts. Social media platforms like Twitter and Facebook have become powerful political tools. Politicians use these platforms to communicate directly with the public, bypassing traditional media. Barack Obama's 2008 campaign was groundbreaking in its use of social media to mobilize voters. Big data is another game changer. Political campaigns now use data analytics to target voters with precision. In the 2016 US presidential election, data from Cambridge Analytica was used to create personalized political ads aimed at influencing voter behavior. Artificial intelligence, AI, is starting to play a role in politics. AI can analyze vast amounts of data to predict election outcomes and identify key issues for voters. In India, AI tools were used to analyze social media sentiment during the 2019 general election, providing real-time insights into public opinion. Blockchain technology promises to enhance the transparency and security of voting systems. Blockchain can create tamper-proof records of votes, reducing the risk of election fraud. Countries like Estonia are already experimenting with blockchain-based voting systems. Crowdsourcing platforms are empowering citizens to participate directly in political processes. Websites like change.org allow people to create and sign petitions, bringing issues to the attention of lawmakers. This direct form of engagement can influence political agendas. E-democracy tools are being developed to facilitate online voting and deliberation. These tools can make it easier for people to participate in 12 Why focus groups matter, 9 tips for deeper insights in elections and engage in political discussions. Switzerland has been a pioneer in implementing e-voting systems for its citizens. The rise of deepfake technology poses new challenges. Deepfakes can create realistic but fake videos of politicians, potentially spreading misinformation. Governments and tech companies are working on ways to detect and counter deepfakes. Digital surveillance is becoming more prevalent in politics. Governments use surveillance technologies to monitor and control political activities. This raises concerns about privacy and civil liberties. China's extensive use of surveillance in its social credit system is a notable example.